activates the speaker.
Just don't touch anything.
One of life's basic lessons, really. Just don't touch.
Just added her name, it's okay.
Well,
Oh. I probably would have noticed it later.
okay.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ms. Flatness, would you do roll call, please?
Karen Flatness here. Joanne Maloney.
Here.
Rich Mueller.
Here.
Travis Rao.
Here.
Dan Schmidt.
Here.
Neil Schlake.
Here.
Rick Schultz.
Here. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. It is a one-item agenda that will be the only subject discussed this evening. I would entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Schlake to approve the agenda. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Travis Rao.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. The agenda has been approved. We will start this evening with some public comments, and just to refresh people's memory as to how public comments are handled, we have a form here that was filled out by the 4 individuals that were expecting to talk or that had requested to talk this evening. We are going to grant them that right to share their thoughts. A reminder to those people that are speaking, please don't mention any student names or anything that would be confidential. And we would ask that we would be respectful. This is a subject that we all know is very related to different ways of thinking. So we hope that this is informative and that we are polite and respectful to others that may be viewing it in a different aspect. So the other thing I would add, we will try our best to limit their time to approximately 5 minutes. So with that, I would invite Mr. Mark Kruger to the speaker, please. Mark?
My name is Mark Kruger. I live at 505 Birch Avenue North in New Richland. I'm the head football coach for NRHEG. And I just wanted to share that as a team, we would wish to continue. Our team, most of the players follow the quarantine. They follow the protocols throughout the year. We have had a few positive tests that have come through and some close contacts So those players would be stepping away from the team for a period of time, but most did quarantine. I think because of that, we deserve to finish the season. I think the team went through a lot, and they want to finish the season. I have faith in our coaching staff and what we can do through protocols and keeping the players safe. And I think just in general, we want that opportunity to finish the season we started.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. Next would be Miss Annika Peterson, please. Welcome, Annika.
Hi. Hi everyone, my name is Annika Peterson. I'm the head volleyball coach here and I live at 409 2nd Street, Southwest, in Richland, Minnesota. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to come to this meeting. I understand that it's a very difficult decision and like you said, people feel very differently either way. So if you have any questions, I know they had said you might ask them later. Very willing to discuss whatever you need to. My biggest concern before the season had started was that this would happen, that we would get a couple weeks in or a month in or whatnot and have to shut down due to whether it was our state or our school or whatnot. And so it is a bummer that this is happening. Our goal as coaches is to give our kids every opportunity to play. We want them to be thriving in this classroom and on the court, and we obviously are hoping that they can continue to do that, but we also need to realize we need to keep them safe, and we understand that too. Our team and our program, we've been trying to follow every guideline that has been given to us from our school. We've had a couple athletes that have had to quarantine due to exposure, but luckily we have not had any COVID cases in our volleyball program as a whole. Our girls and staff have been doing a really good job with following those guidelines and doing what they're supposed to. I think that we would like to continue, but at the same time, I fully respect and understand the difficult position that you guys are in, and I will respect whatever decision that we come to as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Next up is Mr. Cordell Schlake. Welcome, Cordell.
My name is Cordell Schlake. I'm a student athlete at NRHEG, and I play on the football team. I live at 26432 90th Street in Richland. If there's one thing in life that I've learned is that it goes by very quickly. My whole life since I've been a child in elementary school, I've always been looking forward to be a leader on this football team. I always imagined scenarios in my head of game-winning drives and game-winning touchdowns. I've worked very hard for a very long time to be in the position that I am today, and I know for a fact that I'm not the only one that feels this way. I know how hard Coach Kruger and the rest of the coaches have worked to set us up for success. After losses, I don't think Coach Kruger sleeps. Football has also been a very easy way to connect to people near me. People I usually don't associate with on this team have become brothers to me. Who picks you up off the ground when you're at your lowest? For us, it should always be each other. To take something like this away from someone is just devastating and demoralizing. However, this can be avoided very easily because we still have the opportunity to play sports while distance learning as other schools have done. The Anoka-Hennepin School District, just north of the city, has allowed sports to continue playing while distance learning. Anoka-Hennepin includes 13 schools. I believe sports are one of the only things a child gets to look forward to now because of all the abnormalities going on due to COVID. With that being said, I hope you at least consider allowing us to play.
Thank you, Cordell. And last but not least, Grace Tufte. Welcome, Grace.
Hi, my name is Grace Tufte. I'm a senior student athlete here at NRHEG. I live at 221st Street Northwest in Richland, Minnesota. And like Cordell said, we don't have much to look forward to, and sports are a voluntary activity that we are all desperately wanting to play. Other schools are making it work, and I hope ours does as well, on behalf of being a sports player myself. To reiterate, it is the only thing we are looking forward to since so much has been stripped away from us already. For some of us, like Cordell and I, this is our last chance to play the sports that we love. Since we have the opportunity to make it work, I hope we are able to finish our seasons that were already shortened.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. If I am accurate with the necessary paperwork. That concludes our public comment section for this evening. Is that accurate with everyone here? I wanted to make sure we gave everyone the opportunity to speak as they had hoped. And coaches, we may be turning to you for some discussion items here too. So I do appreciate everyone's sincerity and their accuracy of their statements. So nicely done, students and coaches. So thank you. With that, we will move into the discussion amongst the board and superintendent. And again, very challenging subject here before us this evening. A variety of opinions circulate out there. And I applaud the board members for taking this very sincere in addressing this subject. It isn't the only subject that we've been exposed to because of this pandemic that we're in the midst of. So again, thank you to all board members willing to look at this subject. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Carlson to maybe introduce this and give us some highlights on the subject in front of us this evening. Dr. Carlson?
Thank you. I do have a number of comments and introductory comments to make. So I'll get started and then we'll move into discussion. So tonight the board is asked to give direction as to the status of activities when in distance learning. Most immediate is regarding this week as well as next week. As you know, in consultation with the board chair, I moved the secondary school to distance learning beginning tomorrow, Tuesday, November 10th. The sudden timing of this decision for moving to distance learning was due to changes within our school district, impacting students and staff even within a 48 to 72 hour period beginning last week on Thursday. There was no school today for secondary school students as staff used the day to plan for the transition. That decision was based on multiple metrics that we have been following, including the number of cases within our district and specific schools, the number of quarantines within our district and specific schools, the ability to adequately staff our classrooms in school, the Minnesota Department of Health 14-day countywide case rate, the COVID-19 cases within our 4 zip codes that make up the majority of our school district, and also the ongoing positivity rate within our 3 counties. I share with you the metrics involved in making the timely decision to move to distance learning because many of these metrics may impact your decision tonight on whether or not to maintain activities, even though a building has moved to distance learning. As of noon today, a few numbers to share. We are at the 20 or a little over number of isolations in the district, and isolations reflects the number of who have tested positive. We are over 80 quarantined in our school district. I'll share with you a little bit of a breakdown per building, since much of the focus tonight on activities is more related perhaps to our secondary school building. Out of those 20 plus positive cases, we look at about 16 plus of those in the secondary school, and about 4 plus in the elementary school. And I say plus because numbers continue to change even today. Quarantines right now, this was as of noon today, are about even between the 2 school buildings. We're in that 40 to low 40 range, kind of that low 40 range in each building. Along the last few weeks, and even noted tonight already, we will not get into specific numbers within certain activities, but in general, I think it has become evident and shared that for whatever reason, And this is what's difficult about all this. It's hard we do the contact tracing, but there's no 100% guarantee that we ever will know the source for a positive case. Yes, it's true that within our football program, there have been positive cases and continue to be positive cases as of today. And yes, it's true, as Ms. Peterson mentioned, that there, as of today anyway, we do not know of any identified active positive cases within the volleyball program. As of today, other metrics that I actually have mentioned that lent to making the decision of distance learning that we feel is part of this decision as well is the numbers continue to really head in the wrong direction, whether it's that 14-day lagging case rate within our 3 counties, but also the current numbers that are being reported in our 3 counties now, even as the last 3 days or 4 days especially. The positivity rates, you may have noticed on our dashboard last Friday, took a significant jump, as well as, and then our zip code, the positivity rate didn't take a significant jump, but it trended upward. And again, that's out of all the people that are being tested, that's how many actually test positive. Zip code data is what took a significant jump, and my recent communication with the 3 counties is they anticipate that to continue among the 3 counties, leading to our zip code data likely to continue to trend upward. That's projected, not for certain. So as the urgent focus and decision tonight involves football and volleyball, just note that we do have some other activities that will likely be impacted, that will be in consideration. Just name a couple, for example, within our community ed program, we have cheer. And also we have some plans and work within even our band program, trying to hopefully make some experiences possible, even outside the classroom. As we examine the 2020-2021 planning guidance and safe learning plan that has been out there by the state and continually updated on holding activities while in distance learning, it leaves a certain amount of discretion to the local school district. In a recent call with the Department of Ed, the following, I'm paraphrasing, the following was shared, that if your data indicates that you can be in an in-person or hybrid model, but you choose to move to distance learning, you can continue to have activities in athletics. To determine whether or not activities in athletics should be continued or discontinued, you should review the amount of spread happening with your activities, participants, and athletes. If your data indicates that a substantial, uncontrolled community spread is occurring, and or there is a significant degree of impact on the school community with multiple confirmed cases or large-scale outbreaks occurring among students and staff, then you must, and this isn't about moving to distance learning, but with that, discontinue activities in athletics for a minimum of 2 weeks. So it's a matter tonight, part of that given to local districts is determine where do we feel that we are with substantial, uncontrolled, and so on, which I would have to say that the decision to distance learning in part was trying to stay ahead of this as well and being somewhat proactive. Based on the past 1 to 2 weeks within our football program, we've continued to experience some positive cases. And however, the majority of these players, especially at the upper level, were quarantined. And I do want to note that that did date back to October 26th, with the majority of those players okay to return both on either the November 6th or the 7th. While it is important that all of us continue to do better at masking, distancing, washing hands, staying home when ill, it is also critical that when we are quarantined, we remain quarantined. And for all of us in our communities, while change in behavior moving forward from now is always important to do better, we also know that right now, tonight, what the unknown continues to be is what has happened in the past 10 to 14 days, which makes this difficult. Throughout our contact tracing with cases throughout our school, we have evidence to suspect that people, I'll say just, and I'm not even saying students or staff, that suspect people that are in quarantine. Some of those people have not stayed in quarantine. We have experienced new positive cases during a quarantine period of those in quarantine that has then resulted in additional close contacts, which then have resulted in additional quarantines. Lately, it seems as if we continually are trying to just keep up. And there's a number of people that are working very hard, trying to do our best with contact tracing. And maybe they're not quite working 24/7, but maybe 18 or 19/7. And over the weekends, and it's very much appreciated. That's not a complaint at all, but it is another measure of how much is happening right now within our communities and our homes and schools. So, with that, options that a team of administratively that we've worked on, options, they probably appear fairly obvious, but option would be to suspend all activities, which not only means football, volleyball, but also all other in-person activity, practices, and competitions until further notice. Or you look at activities and where they're at, and in our case right now, it's just the way it is. We seem to have one activity, football, that has unfortunately experienced cases and quarantines more than others. And so another option would be to be specific to the activity, and in this case, football, and continue to have football suspended, but allow volleyball for now to continue, simply because of the known active cases right now. That could change, as we know, at any moment. Also, we know that on the COVID risk levels, football is a high risk and volleyball is a medium risk. Third option, maintain both. Right now, if we feel like our coaches and they can safely, in football, field the team and maintain the protocol, and as well as volleyball and our other in-person activities. Moving to school to distance learning is a difficult decision, as we believe most students learn best when they can have an in-person, face-to-face interaction with their teachers as well as with each other. Suspending activities also is a difficult decision, as we believe the importance of students participating in activities outside the classroom. For those of us that were active, although a few years back, both participants, but more recently over the years as coaches, we know firsthand the special bonds and interactions and experience that happen through those extracurriculars. Clearly, for many students, activities are a special and important part of their school experience and development. Quite honestly, I'd have to say for many staff as well. So thank you for just allowing me to kind of make some comments, and perhaps if they're helpful at all to the board's discussion and ultimate decision. I know that we have some people participating remotely tonight, not only just board members. I believe Mr. Bunn and Mr. Stork are with us, as well as perhaps some others. We also have our two head coaches of the two, what probably is the most urgent decisions as well. So with that, I will leave it to the board. We're available for questions. So there, Mr. Schultz?
I guess just to clarify here, we talked about band and cheer competition. I maybe missed it. Are there any positive cases in either of those two that you're aware of?
You know, thank you.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot
Yeah.
like that, but I guess I'm trying to get a feel for
Sure.
where we've been pretty accurate in tracking.
I do
what's
not
going-
have
Okay.
more of those detailed numbers right
Okay.
now, and I don't want to put anybody
No,
on the team on the spot either. That's been discussed. I would say we continue to work on that. Unless, I won't call on any names, but if there's anybody else that's been part of our small planning group or team that wants to respond to that question.
This is Donna. There are 2 in cheer that are on quarantine at present.
but no positive case there that you're aware of.
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I just
No,
wanted to make sure that people
absolutely.
knew that Donna Olson, our nurse at the elementary school, is with us tonight. And I just want to, there's so many people that have been working hard, continue to do, but a special acknowledgement of her. She's our main person that we go to for contact tracing. And so just a special acknowledgement for Ms. Olson.
And can you give us a little bit of an idea of what this, when you talk about the activities or the potential of an activity within the band program, what that could potentially look like, or what that would consist of? You talked about a concert, I would assume.
I will perhaps ask Mr. Bunn or Mr. Stork, would one of you be able to respond?
Yes. Right now, Rick, what we have been doing is jazz band practices prior to the school day starting, some early morning practices. It's a possibility that those could continue if we thought that would be appropriate. And also on November 23rd, Mr. Otscott and myself had planned an in-person, filming session or large rehearsal together where we could do some filming in the attempts to try and create a virtual concert.
Okay.
That would be the plans for November 23rd.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So a quarantine is being exposed to somebody, do all people under quarantine then get tested? Or, I'm kind of, want a clarification on quarantine versus positive tests. Or maybe Donna can answer.
Donna, you can correct. I'll give a first stab. The question is the difference between quarantine and testing positive or being in isolation, and do all people that are identified as a close contact who then are in quarantine, do they have to get tested? Donna, would you want to try to respond to that first, actually?
Yes, sure. They do not have to be tested if they're in quarantine. If they show symptoms, it's suggested that they do test so that they have a tracking of positive cases, and they may never have any symptoms. But we're seeing, I saw some on a positive case on Thursday and one on Friday that was a day 13 quarantine. and a day 14 quarantine, which is the reason that for the 14 days. It's 2 to 14 days incubation period for this virus.
And one of the challenges, and we've talked about, is those people that are late in their 14-day quarantine that all of a sudden test positive. It's not as sure, but when did that exposure actually occur? Was it having anything to do with that initial potential exposure that led them to be first quarantined, or did something happen additionally during the quarantine? And, you know, that's just, that's a very difficult thing to know for sure.
So back on that, if somebody did have symptoms during their quarantine and didn't get tested, they could have been a positive, and you never know.
Yeah, that's correct. But the plus side of getting tested when you were in quarantine, if you had symptoms, was then you would not have to, you'd have a 90-day window in there of not having to test or quarantine again.
Donna, this is Joanne. I really don't follow the 90-day issue. If you were, can you try that again?
If you test positive, they don't test you again for 90 days.
Okay.
So because the virus would still show up in your system, but it doesn't mean that you can transmit the virus.
Thank you. That helps.
Okay.
So continuing with that subject, then, some of our earliest positive cases, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but 20, I think, is the figure we have been using from a district-wide standpoint.
As of earlier today, correct, yeah?
So of those 20, are some of those into that 14-day period to where positive cases, is it safe to assume that number is less currently because of some of them spending that 14-day time frame? So that number should be lower. Am I thinking properly here, Donna?
I'm not sure
Well, they wouldn't be spreading the virus, I guess it would be a better way of putting it, or is that not? How
Right.
long can they potentially spread the virus?
Well, the thought is if they make it those 14 days without showing any symptoms, then they should not be able to spread anything because they don't have the virus.
Okay.
That's the reason for the 14 days.
But
Then if they show any symptoms, then they go from quarantine into isolation.
Okay.
And that's 10 days from their symptoms.
So
I
is
wonder-
the 20 number cumulative, or is it currently active cases?
Say that again, Joanne?
Is the number, the 20 number, is that a cumulative number of positive cases, or is it currently active cases?
Those are currently active.
Thank you.
Yeah, Donna, this is Travis Routh here. I kind of wonder if Mr. Schultz's question was, do you have an idea where we're at as far as people coming out of isolation of those 20 cases? That's kind of what are we on is it kind of just a continuum and holding steady, or?
Well, I believe in looking today, there are 2 that came off of isolation as of today, and there's maybe 1 tomorrow and another one on Wednesday. But then I had, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 more positive, and I don't know how many more tests I've had also today. So I'm not ever getting ahead of anything here. I mean, if anything, I'm going backwards. I'm contact tracing now on a group of about 15, 20 kids. I'm waiting for guidance from the Minnesota Department of Health right now.
So it seems like you're all correct that as each day passes, well, not every day, but based on their schedule, yes, we will, even positive cases will come up and they'll be able to return. But it seems like in the last 5 days, at least it seems like we are losing ground. So in other words, for every one that drops off, we are, as a district, picking up more than one.
Mr. Chairman, this is Rich talking. I'm understanding all the numbers and stuff, but I think what we're beating the numbers, I think, to death. I think the big thing that we need to focus on are the students. This goes way back to March when we first started this. Seemed like we're taking everything away from them. They lost out on their spring sports. The graduation's not what they wanted, and now we're giving them back stuff, but now we're yanking it away from them. It's basically saying, oh, you know, it's not good enough right now to do. I think instead of just focusing on numbers, we really need to focus on the students, and by them going to distance learning, they're not having a whole lot of contact with their friends. And I think that sports really help a lot of kids. There may be some kids that struggle with something, and I think that we need to really look at the sport aspect and keeping them sane, I guess you could say would be a good word, instead of just focusing on numbers. We need to look at the kids as people and not just numbers.
Appreciate that, Rich. Thank you. And I think that's the balancing act that we're all faced with this evening is, you know, as we all have, we've spent a lot of time on this subject and not, I think priority number one is the classroom setting. How are we handling that? And as I will remind the board and the general public here, we are an educational facility, education first. But again, as this pandemic has come across, we are hearing more and more on the mental health aspect of this with the students and how we manage that safely. There's no one will deny we would love to be open to the fullest extent here and have it back to normal, but we know we're not there right now. That's the trick call here this evening is where do we allow a little bit of this gap to manage the balance of these students. One question, if I may, I appreciate the coaches being here, and this isn't a question to try and that there's a right or wrong answer, but if each of you could give us a little feel for what the remainder of your season schedule looks like and what kind of a time frame we're looking at here for each of your seasons, if you would, please.
We have at most 3 weeks left. This week we have a regular season finale game on Thursday. Next week we would have at most 2 playoff games, Tuesday and Saturday. The week after, which would be the week of Thanksgiving, we would have a playoff game on that Saturday. So 4 games and 3 weeks total left. A little less than 3 weeks with this week already started.
And we have 3 weeks of regular season games left. We have 2 games this week, 2 the following week, and then 1 game. And then we would have Thanksgiving break. Playoffs would start for us December 3rd. If we would win, we would play on for the 3rd, the 5th, and then into that next week. So we're looking a little farther out.
So inside of a month for both programs?
Give or take.
Essentially?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate, we've been through this being proactive the whole time and trying to chase things, and I don't envy anybody, especially you, Donna, with all the, like you say, falling behind. But I just think Rich kind of put it very well. I mean, they're not gonna be in school, so they're gonna be part to that family of their team or the brothers or what was mentioned. And I guess I'm very much for everything going forward with the sports and doing the online schooling. And if those that wanna step aside, they can, and I think they've been very forthright on coming up with the symptoms to get tested. They could have easily been dishonest and not got tested and brought it to the forefront, because maybe the symptoms weren't anything more than a cold. I don't know for sure, but I want to credit people for being forth and honest and going through the testing too. We don't want to discourage people from getting tested just because of the numbers. And back to Rich's point about the numbers.
Coaches, again, can you give us some type of a feel, and again, I know we're not at 100% of acceptance and rule following. We never have been, we never will be, and we're not expecting you to be there, but you know, the guidelines that we are asked to follow, how is that received in a typical evening practice? Do you feel comfortable with the effort put forth with, or is there a significant percentage that are not following some of our guidelines?
I feel confident in the effort put forth. It's a lot of reminders. It's a lot of reminders on. I mean, the mask is the biggest one, especially, for example, when you're playing football. You don't have a mask on during the play, but then when you're off the play, mask is back on. So it's that reminders. I've seen the team, the players have started to step up and they call each other out, remind each other. I've been proud of that. And then it's before we get onto the field, we do the screening, we temp check, and they have a Google form they fill out, asking all these questions on, you know, if they have been around someone with a positive test, and they list all the symptoms. So I feel very comfortable that the players are very much aware of the symptoms, because they have to fill out that they don't have those symptoms every day.
Like Mark said, we have the same check-in, we do the same temp checks. The questions were given us by the school that we need to follow, the same ones we needed to follow this summer. Like he said, everybody needs reminders to wear our masks, you know, our parents included, going to games. They're uncomfortable, people don't like them, but the girls have been making an effort. You know, we've talked a lot about it, especially when another team had to shut down. Like, hey, if we want to keep continuing playing, we need to be respectful of each other. We need to continue to do this so that we can continue our activities. You know, since then, they've done a lot better job of making sure that they're wearing their masks and trying to socially distance as much as possible. Our gym obviously is not as big as others in the district that we can completely social distance, especially when you're playing an activity regardless anyway. But they are making effort. Our coaching staff is doing our best to try and space kids out and do what we need to do it safely.
I think it has been stated, or I've heard it at least, that the children are doing better in this pandemic than some of us adults, yes, as far as following guidelines, but I'm not saying that we don't all need reminders of what that expectation is, but I appreciate knowing how it is going from that aspect, because I think if we did our part, it is my belief that there is data that shows we can control it better than no guidelines whatsoever. Any other board members virtually that would like to add some some viewpoints or make some comments here? We want to make you comfortable in feeling that you're a part of this meeting, even if you are virtual, so I don't want to have anybody miss an opportunity to speak or share their thoughts.
This is just a quick question for the coaches. Mark was mentioning about a form that they fill out before they step out, or they have to answer before they step out on the field. Is that for every practice, or is that just before games and stuff?
Every practice.
Yes, everything, every practice.
To be allowed in the gym, they have to get their temp checked. They have to go take their phone and do a QR code. It asks them questions right away. It automatically gets uploaded. Mine gets uploaded to myself. Mark's gets uploaded to his. We can both check them before practice even starts.
Dr. Carlson, this would be a question for you. In the event we were to approve continuing with activities, how do you foresee handling or the decision-making process in the event that we do have an outbreak that we were uncomfortable with and deciding that we needed to make a change from our initial plan?
Sure, thank you. I wanted to say that as well, as I hear that if that was the direction going to continue, that would be something that it would be helpful to have some additional guidance on are there certain criteria, guidelines, parameters that we would look at to reconsider. I think for tonight, the best thing that I could respond to that question would be, if we have an activity and that group of students, within that active group of students, there becomes a positive case, then I think that we would immediately minimum have to evaluate all the different data that we have. We follow some of the guidance. I can't sit here and say that it should be absolutely, that it only takes one.
Right.
I don't think we should commit ourselves to that. I think it really deserves a closer evaluation of that. I do think, though, that it does quickly become a great concern, even when you just have one participant who is currently actively participating, perhaps differently than who's on quarantine, which several of you have kind of alluded to tonight. So, Mr. Schultz, I know I'm not giving you a number.
No, I guess I think you're accurate in not giving that number, because I think that
But it could result possibly, and then we would sit back, we would talk with Ms. Olson, our coaches, perhaps our regional support team,
Right.
which by the way, there was a good conversation yesterday afternoon as well with that. But to answer your question, I think that maybe, possibly, it would require a very temporary, just stop, in order, if we think we need more time to evaluate the impact on the entire team. So I think that's probably the best I can offer you tonight.
Thank you. Nope, good enough. Right.
And I guess whether or not, then we probably want some guidance, whether at that point, would the board say, without any real specific parameters or guidelines, how do we make that decision?
That's where I was going with that.
Are we back here like this?
Right.
Which these decisions are there's a real time urgent need, or are there some possible criteria, things that we can look at that the board can definitely agree to give this decision to administration or so on? We just haven't had this conversation. And I think that that's part of the reason why this is important tonight as well.
In a perfect world, I would hope we could make 3 weeks to the finish line in both activities, or all activities, to get to this Thanksgiving time period. And I mean, but it is a valid point. I mean, I don't know what, I'll use the explosion is, but, I just think
And
the schooling or the sport, I mean, back with the Minnesota State High School League delaying it and stuff, and like I say, to a certain point, to Rich's point, these numbers, and we've been trying to be proactive, and I think it, you know, it's behind us, but it's good to be proactive, and yet these numbers, we gotta deal with the situation, I guess, but.
If we're being proactive to go into distance learning, and we have everything set for football, volleyball, band, cheer, why not continue with the sports? And we know what needs to be done, and if, like you said earlier, that if there's a case, we're going to stop and identify where we need to go. Why not let these students, they're only young once, let them play and then come back and reconvene if something does happen. Let them, some of these are seniors. I think that's what we need to do. We're taking away the in-person learning. Let's give them that chance to be with other students and be kids and let them have something to help with this, you know, unknown in our future. We don't know what's gonna happen for winter sports, and we don't know what's gonna happen in spring. We know what's happening now, and that's what we need to focus on. How can we keep everyone safe? We don't know what tomorrow is given to us, but we know what today. We can't live in fear, but we also need to be respectful of what's going on, but give the students and coaches that opportunity and let them choose. Parents can choose if they want their kids to play or not, just like if they want to have them be in distance learning or hybrid, wherever we are. I think we leave it up to the parents with understanding what will happen in the future.
This is Travis Routh here. As most of you know, I have a senior and a freshman in school. Both happen to play football. And I think for those of you that maybe don't have kids in school or living with kids in school, to speak to what Rich said a little bit, no parent's going to say their kids are wimps, and I'm going to tell you mine are not. But I will tell you they're suffering, and any little bit of socializing activity, quarantining, or I should say distance learning. Now that's just more sitting in their bedroom, and that's not healthy physically or mentally. So I think everybody probably knows my opinion on this subject. And if you have any questions for me in particular, I'm glad to answer them.
Appreciate that, Travis. I will ask one more time if anybody wants to add any more comments to the discussion here. Again, I applaud everyone for their thought process in this. It is an easy decision. I think, again, I mentioned earlier, thanking board members. This is a complete community effort here. This isn't just the board. It isn't just the administration. It's a total community situation we're in here, from the student to the staff. The staff is overwhelmed. The board members are overwhelmed. The administration. We talk about the hours put in on this subject, and stress levels are high, to be polite about it. Again, I'll just brush on this and then we'll move on, but I do feel very conscious of what is said and posted on social media. I would ask the entire community, students, staff, board members, parents, just bear in mind the variety of opinions out on this subject, and I have yet to see a problem solved on social media. It will not get solved there. I know I can't tell you what to post or what not to, but I can tell you that positive posts and positive comments are more successful in my calculation, than negative. And, again, share that difference of opinion personally with that individual, and, please respect social media. It doesn't help. With that, you know, I'm getting the feeling that we've talked about it. We kind of know where our three options were introduced. Again, thank you, administration, for presenting the three options. I think we're at a point to where I can ask to entertain a motion as to how we move forward on the subject. And again, I'll say it one last time, please, parents, students, staff, respect the decision. We're not saying we're 100% right on whichever direction we go here this evening, but please work together as a community to get through this and respect each other. So with that, I'll leave it back to entertaining a motion to move forward on a decision here.
I'll make a motion to keep all activities, I believe it was option 3, active.
Second.
Can't hear him.
I make a motion to keep all activities active. I think it was option 3, if I remember right.
That is correct. So the motion is to continue with all activities being active. There would not be anything asked to stop participating. And I believe there was a second to that motion by Mr. Schmidt. So at this time, I would call for discussion on that particular motion, and understanding the motion to continue with all activities, and that's where we would be at. So any discussion, board members?
I have maybe a question or a comment. Sorry, Joanne. No, there's other things coming up, I believe, right? Maybe not right away, but like one act play, things like that. So I would hope in this motion or I'm sure it kind of includes everything, so that other kids that are interested in other extra activities could participate in things like that.
I'll defer that to Dr. Carlson, please. Could you, or any, Mr. Bunn?
I'll make an attempt here. I think, quite honestly, the urgency tonight was to try to address under an emergency setting what's happening immediate in this week and perhaps next week. Knowing that there is a regular board meeting set for a week from tonight, and actually there's a special meeting this Friday. The focus there is on canvassing, but if needed. So Mr. Ralph, it's a fair question. I guess we were working to prepare more for the very immediate right now tonight. But I guess Mr. Budd or Mr. Stork might have more of an update on, like, within the next 2 weeks, what other things are coming up immediate that maybe that should be understood a part of tonight.
Yeah, and I can't speak outside of, the athletics and activities world within the school. I know there may be some community ed activities that are planning to start up in the next couple of weeks. I'm unsure of that. We are scheduled to start boys basketball on November 23rd. We would still be in distance learning at that time. Wrestling is scheduled to start November 30th, and girls basketball is scheduled to start December 7th. One act play would begin practicing early December and into January.
So I guess to respond to Mr. Ralph's question, I guess that's up to the board if you want to address those tonight somehow, or if we want to make sure we include that on next Monday's regular board meeting agenda.
Travis, how do you feel about that? That was your question, so I'll ask you where your comfort level is on that.
Well, I guess I don't think that's a real important thing then. I guess we could always address that at a later meeting. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. But good question, because I think that is a very valid point of how I feel as a school district, we want to have some uniformity here on activities because there is not one activity that I feel is more important than another, and consistency here is definitely appreciated and valued, and we need to be sensitive to that as a board. So
Well,
thank you for the question.
And I think it's important that through this, yeah, we're not saying, yes, we can play football and volleyball and because it's the athletic program. In my opinion, this is a mental health thing more than anything. Like
Right.
we owe it to the kids to give them the opportunities just to do something. You know, the band and the cheer, all of those activities fall under that umbrella.
Thank you. Ms. Maloney, I think at one time you had expressed a chance to ask a question or make a comment here.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment, maybe a question. You know, I mean, I think this is important too. I want these students though to recognize that this is a privilege, that they really need to follow the guidelines. If they're quarantined, stayed in quarantine. Remember, this is a really small community. People know who's on what team, and they see people out and about when they're not supposed to be out and about. And even for the fans. I mean, I guess I haven't, you know, I mean, I don't have a kid in school anymore, so I haven't been to any of these events. I'm wondering what the compliance has been like in the fan sections, even if you're outside at a football game or if you're inside at a volleyball game. Are the fans being respectful and masking up and distancing as they should?
I could speak to that, Joanne. I can say at the football games that we've had at home or in Albert Lee, we have seen pretty good fan participation in wearing masks. They don't always stay on. Oftentimes they'll be in the stands and the mask will come off. At volleyball games, it's a little bit different because it's indoors, obviously. There has been a few cases where we've had to remind people to mask up, both fans and players when they're not participating in the game. But overall, I would say that it's been fairly good. Social distancing has been an issue. Like Annika alluded to in the past, our gym is not as big as others. It's a little bit more difficult for people to keep their distance in there, but still is possible, and for the most part, it's been pretty good.
Okay, thank you. I would just really encourage the fans to, you know, I mean, they want their kids to be involved, and I get it, these kids need this. So do your part, parents and grandparents, whoever else is lucky enough to attend those games, and do what you need to do to ensure the success of the program that can move forward.
Excellent comment, Joanne. Thank you. I will ask one more time before we go to a roll call vote. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Ms. Flatness, roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
I,
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. We will continue with activities. At this time, that brings to a close the items for discussion. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to adjourn. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
I.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your attention tonight, and thank you to all the people that tuned in and followed the meeting virtually and remotely. So have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.